morning, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started for today because we have a few things we need to cover. Hope everybody had a good couple of days, the last couple of days, and this is a reminder, this is the last Wednesday of classes for the month because next week is Thanksgiving week, and so you are off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from classes next week. So this is the last Wednesday of classes. We're going to continue what we work on today on Monday. So it'll just be a continuation. We're still going to be working in week 9. And today we're going to try to start and finish our notes for the week. If we don't, it's okay. We'll finish them on Monday. All right. But before we get into that, as you can see on your screen there, we have a warm-up that we're going to do. We're going to do our discussion. We're going to do actually the GED practice question, then a discussion post as well. And so let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger from my end. Okay. All right, so this question says a pair of jeans gets marked down from $40 to $32. By what percent did the price get reduced? And so I saw a couple responses in the chat. What are we supposed to do when we're looking for a percent decrease?
Divide.
Okay, we're gonna divide, but what do we do first? What's the first step?
Rather take away the 32 from the 40 to find out how much was the discounted price to know the percentage.
Okay, great. So we
That
have
was
to
8.
subtract first, right? We're gonna get 8, and then we take the 8 and we divide it by 40. Right, so we do 40 minus 32. We're gonna get 8, and we divide 8 by 40. And we're gonna get 1/5 or 0.2, which tells us that the percent decrease was 20%. Good work. All right, so percent increases and decreases are a question that is very often asked on the GED. And people don't like percent, so they get freaked out, but it's actually really easy. Again, you subtract, divide, and that'll give you your decimal, which you can turn into a percent very easily. All right, so it's just 20%. All right, let's try this next question. All right, so we have a chart here, and this chart has, this is Janet's salary information. Okay, and so it has her gross salary, her federal taxes, her state taxes, and her social security. What percentage of her gross salary does Janet pay toward social security? Round your answer to the nearest 10th of a percent. So how do we figure out how much, what percent of her salary is going towards Social Security? How do we figure that out?
Subtract the gross from the Social Security.
So this is not a percent decrease problem.
Oh, the new.
So we are just trying to figure out the straight up percent that $27 is of 1,012. So we have a couple ways we can set it up. This is just a proportional relationship really, right? Because what we're being asked is what percent out of 100%, right, is $27 of 1,012, okay? So we can do a cross multiplication to get 2,700 is equal to 1,012x and divide both sides by 1,012. Right, so we would just do 2,700 divided by 1,012. And we would get, sorry, my marker went away. Let me bring it back. We would get, oops, sorry, we would get x is equal to 2.67%, which it says we have to round to the nearest 10th of a percent. So our answer
So
should
be
be
2.7.
2.7%. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to just take 27, divide it by 1,012, and then multiply that answer by 100. Okay, either way, you're going to get the same answer, but be very careful because the decimal that you get is not the percent. Remember, to get a percent, you have to take that decimal and multiply it by 100 or move the decimal 2 places to the right. All right, so I saw your answer there, Jules, but it was off because that's the decimal, not the percent. So be careful. Always be careful with those decimals and those percents. Like, very good. All right, any questions about those? It's good to get our brains working with those percents. And then we can dip into, all right. Okay, so now we're gonna go over our discussion posts from Monday, because I haven't gone over that with you guys yet. So we're gonna do that now. All right, so what I am showing you guys is the Math Skills 5 Week 9 folder. And we're going into the third thing that's listed here, which is the how are percents related to fractions and decimals. And so we are going to try to calculate fractions, percents, and decimals. We're going to see if we remember how to convert between these three things. Okay, so if I have 350%, how do I turn that into a decimal?
Move it over 2 places.
Which direction?
To the
or right?
left. To the
Very
left.
good. So to turn a percent into a decimal, I always go to the left, right? So it's 3.5. All right. How do I turn a percent into a fraction?
To the right.
No. Turn a percent into a fraction. I just take the percent and put it over 100.
100, yeah.
And then I simplify. All right, so those zeros can go away. So then I have 35 over 10. And I'm just going to reduce it by 5s. I have 7 over 2. All right, so let's try this next one. I'm going to change colors so we don't bleed. I have a decimal and it's 0.025. How do I turn that decimal into a percent?
Multiply by 100.
Okay, I just go 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So it becomes 2.5%. Right. How do I turn that decimal into a fraction?
Would it be divided by 1,000?
Very good, right? So you're going to use the place of the last number in the decimal. In this case, this 5 is in the thousands place, right? So I just take my decimal and put it over that place. So 25 over 1,000, right? Because I have the tenths, hundreds, thousands, that 5 is in the thousands place. So it's 25 over 1,000. And I can, of course, reduce this fraction by 25. It'll be 1 over 40. This 25 should go into both of those numbers. So my fraction is going to be 1 over 40. All right, and last but not least, we have a fraction, and we have to change that into both a decimal and a percent. How do I turn a fraction into a decimal?
This time you're gonna multiply.
Nope. What am I gonna do? What is a fraction? A fraction is a symbol of division, right? So I'm just gonna divide.
Divide 8 into, okay.
Yep.
That would be 10 though.
Right, exactly. You have to make it 10 so it becomes a decimal right away. So how many times is 8 going to 10?
1, I mean the 2, add a 0, 2.
So 8 goes into 16,
4, 5.
0,
So it's going to be 0.125.
Very good. Okay. And of course, I cannot turn a fraction directly into a percent. I have to use the step of the decimal first. So now that I have this decimal, how do I turn that decimal into a percent?
Going to divide again?
How do you turn a decimal into a percent? I just
move it over.
Yeah, it's got to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So it's 12.5%.
Lord. Mr. G, you said before that this was the last maths class?
This was the last Wednesday of math in November.
Okay.
After Thanksgiving, we're only going to have 2 weeks left of classes. So after today, we only have 5 classes.
So one of the faults from,
What is that? Friday, is that Friday the 14th? No, Friday is the 11th of December. Yeah, that's when it ends.
When we do the CASA test, Mr. G?
The CASAS test is the following week. So I
Okay.
guess technically the fall semester ends on the 18th or whenever you finish taking your CASAS test.
And we'll get an email to tell us the data for our CASA testing, right?
Correct. It should be both an email and a phone call. Not everybody will have to test. And I think especially you, Miriam, you probably don't have to test at all because you already have the scores that you need for your program.
I need to test, Mr. G.
Why? Because you just want to?
Yeah. Not only that, but the last CASA test I did, I wasn't, the class was a bit distracting. So I just said, you know what, let me just get over this and get out.
Okay.
Persons was in and out and all of that.
Yeah, as per usual. You know how they are. Okay, so let's get into these notes for this week. As long as nobody has questions about this. Everybody's okay with this?
I'm gonna go over them again, but not here. I am done.
Let me, you know what, actually, let me pull up some notes just as a reminder of how to do this. So remember, this is, what we're working on here is our rational numbers, right? You guys have seen this 1,001 times with me. And by you all, I mean Miriam and Tishel. You guys have seen this 1,001 times. We've done this.
Lord, we have grandmothers in the class. We need to get out.
I
Tishel, you need to get out.
know.
So remember that
trying.
we convert between fractions, decimals, and percents all the time, right? Because they are interchangeable.
That's what decimal and fraction and what?
Percents.
Let me do a quick note. F for fraction.
So how do I turn a fraction
D for decimal.
into a decimal?
P for percentage.
Remember, to turn a fraction into a decimal, all I do is divide, right? We divide the numerator by the denominator. So if I have 1/4, I do 4 into 1, right? And I'm going to get 0.25. To turn a fraction into a decimal, all I need to do is divide.
So it's 4.
To turn a decimal into a fraction,
What should equal to Z? Is it 0.2, Mr. G?
0.25.
0.25. Okay.
To turn a decimal into a fraction, remember that I have to use my place value, right? So I have to use place value. So where is my 5? My 5 is in the
Yes.
hundreds place.
Oh,
Hundreds place, right? So that means this becomes 75 over 100. And then I have to simplify. And I'm gonna get 3 over 4. So 0.75 is equal to 3 over 4. Just gonna decimal into a fraction. So you use your place value and you simplify.
Fraction to decimal.
And decimal to fraction.
Fraction. So you want to do fraction to percentage now?
Yeah, that's next. Okay, so I cannot turn a fraction directly into a percent? Okay, so remember that really can't happen very easily. So instead, I have to go fraction to decimal first, and then turn the decimal into a percent. Okay, and I turn a decimal into a percent by going 2 places to the right.
And it's always 2 places to the right, right, Mr. G?
Always, always, always. So 0.14 becomes 14%.
Places to the right. Always 2 places. So it becomes what, 14%, you said?
0.14 becomes 14%. Absolutely. Let me erase 1 and 2. Okay, all right, so now let's do percent to decimal. In order to turn a percent into a decimal, I just go back the other way, right? So I'll go 2 places to the left. So if I have 6.5%, I have to go 2 places to the left. So I'll have 0.065, okay, to turn that percent into a decimal. All right, and then last but not least is percent to a fraction. All right, let's say I have 25%. Right, all I do is I put it over 100. Put the percent over 100, and then you simplify if you can. If you can't simplify, you leave it alone. But I do 25 over 100. And when I simplify that, I'm going to get 1/4. So 25% is 1/4. Okay, so that's all of them. You can always relate all of these rational numbers together. Fractions, decimals, percents, all of it. Okay. The only one that's not direct, you can't go directly from a fraction to a percent. You have to go with the step in between of the decimal. All right, so that was just that little reminder. So hopefully that is helpful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up our notes. Again, this is in the week 9 folder. I'm going to open up the percents and simple interest notes. Or I guess just percent notes for right now. The simple interest notes will come. later. All right, so we're gonna open it with Cammy. All right, and so this first page is just a straight up reminder of how to work with percents. All right, again, I turn my percent into a decimal first, and then I use my decimal in my calculation. So if I want to find 70% of 150, I turn my 70% into 0.7 or 0.70. I then multiply that to 150, and I'm going to get my answer, which is 105. All right, so let's try this one. 40% of 120. My first step, of course, is going to be to turn my 40% into a decimal, which is 0.4. I'm going to take my 0.4 and multiply it to 120. And what's my answer?
Would be 480.
I have to move my decimal. Don't forget to move your decimal.
You gotta move your decimal 2 points.
No, when you multiply, remember when we're multiplying by decimals, what do we have to do at the end?
Add a 0.
How many decimal places do we have?
1.
Oh, so it'd be 48.0.
There it is. Good. Or just 48. Okay. Don't forget, whenever we're multiplying by decimals, we have to move over by that many decimal places that we have in our factors. So there's only one decimal place. So in our answer, I need to move over by 1. So now I have 48 as my answer.
Would equal to 48 over 48.0. What is 60% of 70?
Yeah, what is 60% of 70?
8.706742.
What'd you get?
42.
Perfect. All right, so this should really just be a pretty much a refresher, right? This is something that you guys have seen before, you've worked on it before. It'll just take a couple minutes for your brain to click, but when we're finding the percents, it's just straight up multiply, right? And then work with your multiplication of decimals means that you have to remember to move over by those decimal points when you answer. Another reminder of that essentially is that if I'm finding the percent of a number, my answer should not be bigger than the number that I started with, right? So that'll be an indication to you that you probably forgot to move over your decimal, okay? If I get an answer, right? So if I get 420, I'm like, wait, how is 420 60% of 70? That doesn't make any sense, right? So you just go back and check and realize that you need to just move over by 1 decimal.
You know, if I was with it, the shortcut way that I did it, Mr. G, I'd be like 50% of 70 is 35, 10% of 77, so $42.
Right. Yeah, that's the other way. That's a little bit more complicated. That doesn't sound like a shortcut. That sounds like a long
not to me, Mr. G. It's easy for me because that I don't even need the pen and the paper to do that. I just do that in my head.
Yeah. Well, for me, I just did 7 times 6.
Right.
Yeah. 7 times 6. Okay. All right, so let's try these. 30% of 250, so do all of them and then I'll just go over the answers with you all.
Okay, what's 30% of 250? Oh, Lord. at 40%. 40% $55. Then 10% of $780. 20% of 1,300. Then 90% of
So just 1 through 5. We'll do the word problem together.
800.
All right, so what is the first one? What is 30% of 250?
$75. 75.
75. Good. 40% of 55.
22.
Good. All right. 10% of 780.
7.8.
Nope.
8.
78. Remember that 10% is also one of those ones that you don't have to calculate. Yes, you can
Just
do
take out the
0.1
zero.
times 780, but right, exactly. 10%, you just take off a
That's easy.
decimal place. Whenever you do 10%, you just take off a decimal place. In this case, it's just the 0, so it'd be 78. But whenever you're finding 10%, you just move the decimal 1 time to the left. Okay. All right. What about number 4? 20% of 1,300.
26.
Not 26.
260.
260. You left the 0 off.
Oh, I'm thinking 130. What did I?
Okay. And then 90% of 800.
72.
720.
720.
Yeah, you left the 0 off again. All right, in this one, if you're finding 90%, that's the same as subtracting 10%. So actually that's what I did, was find 10%, which is 80. And then I just did 800 minus 80, which gives me 720. All right, so that's just another hint for you on how to kind of work through some of these a little quicker. Find 10% and subtract it. That's how you get 90%. All right, let's go on to these word problems.
The Smith family went out to dinner and received great service. They decide to leave a $20 tip for their waitress.
20%.
20%, sorry, tip for their waitress. If their dinner bill totals $90, how much was the tip? Think. You need to find the percentage of what number. Show your workout, oh Lord.
So if we have 20% of $90, what are we going to do?
$1.80.
180 minus from
Almost, Tisha.
1.
You're off by 1 decimal place.
So it says
Check your work.
it'll be 20% of
$18.
$90.
Did you say, Tisha?
$18.
There you go. Yeah, not $1.80. Right? Could you
$18.
imagine a $1.80 tip on $90? I'd be mad. I'd be like, where is my money? Okay, yeah. So you do 90 times 0.2, you're actually going to get $18 as the tip. Okay. $118. And then, so if I asked you what the total was he left for the dinner bill, right? You'd have to take that 90 and add 18. So this is how much he paid in total, which would be $118, right? Because you have to add on the tip to your total, right? Just a reminder. Yes, this was not the question. The question was just to find the tip, but just so you know. All right, number 7 says Carlos just took a 40-question math test. He scored a 75%. How many questions did he get correct on his test?
75% of what?
30 questions.
Good. You're gonna do 0.75 times 40,
30.
and you're gonna get 30 questions. That's how many he got correct. Okay, the other way to think about this is, I know what 75% is as
So what's 25%?
a fraction, right? That's 3/4.
Yeah.
If you got 40 questions, right? That means my answer has to be 30, right? Multiplied by 10, both top and bottom. That's another way to think about it, you know? But anyway, yes, 30 questions is the answer. All right, number 8. Marge ordered $320 worth of photographs from a website. She has to pay a 10% shipping and handling fee. How much will the fee cost her? Again, 10% means we don't have to do any math. We just move a decimal to the left. So how much is the fee?
32.
$32. Always find those shortcuts that help you out. And that's one of the biggest shortcuts is that 10%.
In a class.
Okay.
Oh, 320, that was easy.
Yeah. All right, so now let's do numbers 9 and 10. I'm gonna move my screen. Okay, 9 and 10, all right. So
50%
April
off.
made $440 in tips last night waitressing. She had to give 20% of her tips to the boys who cleaned the tables. How much money did she get? Did she have to give them?
$88.
Good.
88.
Right. There are 2 ways to do this. Of course, you can do this in your head by doing 10% twice.
Yes.
44 and 44 is 88. Or you can do the math and you'll still get $88. Okay. All right. Final word problem. You purchase a $1,500 television. You have to pay 6% sales tax. How much will the tax be on your new television?
What a wonderful day it is.
What do I have to multiply the 1,500 by?
6.
By 6?
60. 60
%.
6%. How do I turn 6% into a decimal?
to the right.
So it's going to be what?
60.60.
No, ma'am.
0.06.
0.06. 2 places. 1, 2. 0.06.
It's gonna be $90.
Very good. It's going to give me $90 in taxes. Right? This is the hardest part, right? Remembering those single-digit percents and moving them accurately, that has been the biggest struggle, right? So always make sure that whenever you're doing your single-digit percents, that you are moving accordingly. If you did 60%, you would have ended up with $900.
$100, that would be too much.
Right, exactly. You should think about this. Am I paying $900 in taxes? That should not be right. Okay, you should automatically think that is too much, right? And that's how you know something is off. Okay, so just use logic. Look at your question again if something seems off. All right. All right. So that is your percents. Those are your percents notes. I'm going to release the simple interest notes so that we can go over those as well. They were not released before. I can do that now. Okay, so also in your folder and for week 9, if you go past practice 1 and 2, you'll get to the simple interest formula notes. And those are the notes we're going to work on now. Right, so there are 2 sets of notes in this week. And I'm going to open the PDF version of the notes with Cami. And that's what we have open here. All right. So the simple interest formula uses percentages, right? It uses rates to calculate for you how your interest works. So what is interest?
Interest is what you get on your principal.
Okay. And so when do you make interest, or when are you charged interest?
Charge or make?
Either one. Tell me which one.
All right. When I think when you get interest is depending on the amount of time you have the money in the bank, or
Okay.
what you do with the money in the bank also.
Okay, good. Yep. So yes, I make interest based on a savings account or a CD or anything like that in the bank, right? And yes, it is always based on time. So that's when I can make interest. When am I charged interest?
When you borrow.
Good. When I borrow money, I am charged interest, right? That could be via a credit card, a car loan, a house loan, right? Those are the places where we are charged interest, right? Okay. So simple interest, which is normally what you are making in a bank, and when you are making for simple loans, is called simple interest, meaning that your interest is compounded every year, right? So that is simple interest. Simple interest is the only thing that we have to worry about for the CASAS test or for GED. We are not going to have to worry about the more complicated version, which is compound interest, which is where interest is charged daily. Okay, so simple interest is charged by the year. So when we look at this simple interest formula, which is I, which stands for interest, is equal to P, principal, times rate, times time, that time is always in years. We always calculate that time in years. So if we're not given years, we have to convert it to years, right? So for instance, if I tell you that the money is in the bank for 60 months, how many years is that?
It'll be 60 divided by 12.
Very good.
4.
60 divided by 12 would be 5, right? So it would be 5 years,
oh Lord.
right? So anytime we're given a number that is not, we're given a time that's not in years, we must convert it to years before we put it into this formula, okay? And just like with any time that we're working with percents, we cannot work with the actual percent. We always have to change the percent into a decimal. All right, so that's what we're going to work on right now, is this simple interest formula. We're going to work through the different ways in which we can calculate simple interest, and then also how we can manipulate the formula so that we can find other parts, right? So we can not only find the interest, we could also find the principal, the rate, and the time. All right, so let's work through that. Give me a second here. This. Okay. All right, so we have this chart here. And as you can see, we're going to use, again, the simple interest formula to fill out this chart. In the first example, we need to find the interest that Alice is going to make off of a principal of $600 at a rate of 14% and for 1.5 years. So I'm going to make note of all of those numbers, and I'm going to give us a blank sheet to work on with this formula. So let's see.
Alice Apple.
Alice Apple. So our formula again is interest is equal to P times R times T. Okay, the principal is $600. The rate is 14%, and the time is 1.5 years. All right. Uh-oh, where'd my thing go? Okay. All right, so what am I going to do? How am I going to calculate this interest?
All right, $600 would be the principal. I mean, that's the money that she have or borrowed. At the 14% would be, it would be times the 14% that she's going to pay in interest.
Okay, so what do I have to do to the 14%? I have to make it into what?
Decimal.
Good, so it's going to be 0.14. All right, and then for how long? It's 1.5 years, right?
Do that for 18 months.
Nope, remember, I can only express my time in years when I put it into this formula.
Okay.
So it's not going to be 18 months. I'm going to do what? How am I going to represent 1.5 years? I'm going to do 1.5. Okay. And so I can take all of this and put it directly into my calculator just the way it is. Okay. I can just put it into a calculator to solve what my interest is, or I can do it by hand and do it step by step. Right, but let's just put it for sake of time. Let's just put it in our calculator.
126.
So it'd be 600.
Good. You said 26, Tishelle?
126.
126. Okay, good. Yeah, so that gives me $126 in interest.
That was easy, Mr. G.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my document. And I'm going to put in, I'm going to put in this $125 into my interest earned. All right, so that's how much,
on 126, you got 125.
126, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's 126. Okay. So I figured out Alice, right?
So
but now we have Carl. So Carl has a principal of $1,300, and after 3 years, he made $364 on that principal. I now have to figure out at what rate his interest was being charged, right? So I'm going to write down all that information again and give us another blank sheet.
Principal equals.
Okay, so again, my normal formula is just I is equal to PRT.
So it doesn't matter what you're searching for, it has to be that formula at all times?
So that's a great question. So remember that this is the base formula. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to use that formula to get this answer. So no, I just have to remember that this is the base formula, right? So
because I was thinking of putting P first, like you did. Yeah, then the R, then the interest at the bottom.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how to change the formula up, and it was 3 years, right? And the
Eight
interest was
equals-
364. I'm just going to write down all, so these are all the notes we have, so I don't have to go back to the other sheet. Okay, so what I'm looking for, instead of looking for the interest, right? I'm trying
That's
to find,
3%.
I'm sorry?
3%, right?
I don't know. I
The
don't
T.
remember. The T is 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, year, not percent.
Yeah. Okay. So I have I is equal to PRT, right? But I'm not looking for the I anymore. I want to find the R. So what do I need to do?
So that's the rate.
So what do you normally do when you want to make sure
the
that
divide.
good? So I want to isolate the R, not the I. So
Right.
to get rid of the things that are around the R, I just need to divide by them. That is going to get rid of the P and the T. So now my formula is I divided by P
Which the I is 364
is
divided
equal to
by
R.
130.
And as we can already hear Miriam doing, all you need to do now is plug in the numbers. So you replace I with 364.
364.
You replace the P with 1300. And you replace the T with 3. So the first thing you're going to want to do is multiply this 1300 times 3, which is what?
3900.
Good. So 3900. Perfect. And now in your calculator, you can put 364 divided by 3900. What do you get for your R?
9.74.
What did you get?
0.09.
Okay, yeah, I got 0.09, right? And it's followed by a bunch of 3s.
Yeah.
We don't need those 3s, but we can take that 0.09 and now we're going to turn it into a percent. So what is the percent for 0.09?
It's 9%.
It's just 9%, right? We go 2 places to the right. So our rate, so the rate that he got was 9%. Okay, so just to go over these steps again, right? This formula is our default formula, right? This is our simple interest formula. Interest is equal to principal times rate times time. If you're ever looking for anything different, right, just make sure you isolate that variable and then just plug your numbers in. So in this case, I'm looking for my rate. So I isolated my R and then I just plugged in my numbers and calculated what I had. Okay, and that's how I ended up with the 0.09. But remember, whenever I'm answering a rate question, they're usually not looking for the decimal, they are looking for the percent. So I found 9% as my answer. So I'm going to put
The one, Mr. G, what would you plug in to find out if the 9% would be right?
So what you would do is just, you can put it back into your original formula and see if you get the same interest, right? So we can do 1300 times the 0.09 as your rate, and then times 3 years. Did you end up with 364 or something near 364? %. All right, because when I plugged it in, I got 364, so it works. But yeah, you can always just check it by putting it back into the original formula and see if you get the same interest.
Fred Fish.
All right, so next is Fred Fish. So this time we're looking for the principal because we have the rate, the time, and the interest. So we have 5% at 4 years and we earn $440. So I'm going to put all of that onto my blank screen here. So again, I start off with my normal formula. The rate is 5%. I'm looking for my principal. The time is 4 years. And the interest was $440. Okay, so I have to take my original formula and I have to change it. So what do I have to do to change this formula?
I already have the interest, so interest would be 4.
I'm looking for my principal, right? So that means I need to divide away the R and the T. So it's going to be I over RT, excuse me. I over RT is equal to P. All right, so now we just plug your numbers in.
440 divided by
Good, divided by 0.05, right? Because you have to change the percent to a decimal times 4.
2,200.
So that should be 440 divided by 0.2.
Divided by 0.2.
Is multiplied by 2.
So that 440 divided by 0.2.
Oh, you got the 0.2, Mr. G.
0.05 times 4. Right?
20. Oh, Lord.
2,200.
Good. So then my principal is 2,200. So I started off with $2,200, and after 4 years, I earned $440 of interest because my rate was 5%. That seems to make sense to me, right? So that's how I know that that could potentially be a correct answer. But yes, $2,200 is my principal.
So, I'm not getting something right here. 440 times 20.
No, not times 20.
Divided by 20.
Divided not by 20, by 0.2. Right? So make sure you're doing it step by step. So what I did was,
and that's where I would have gotten it wrong, because even though I'm seeing the 0.05, I'm just thinking about 5.4.
Remember, yes, that's it. That's the problem right there. The percent has to be a decimal. So it's not 5 times 4, it's 0.05 times 4. That's where people make their mistakes. Yes, exactly.
But it's 2 places to the
left.
So when do we go to the right? It's never to the right, it's always to the left.
We go to the right when we turn a decimal into a percent. Right? To turn a percent into a decimal, we always go to the left.
Repeat that, Mr. G.
To turn a percent into a decimal, we go to the left.
Turn a percent to a decimal.
You go to the left. To turn a decimal.
2 places to the left, right?
2 places to the left, yep. And then it's the opposite for a decimal to a percent. To turn a decimal into a percent, I go 2 places to the right.
That's what I wanted, the 2 places to the right. Okay.
So my principal is 2,200. I'm going to put it into my chart.
Places to the right.
Okay.
But only thing I would know that if I got the 220, I would know that something is wrong because I can't have
Yep.
that less to get more.
Exactly. Correct. Mhm. All right. So Sarah Sheep had a principal of 5,000 and she invested it or put it in the bank at a rate at 6.5% and she earned $975 in interest. So we have to figure out for how long she put that money into the bank. Okay, so 5,000, 6.5%, 975 is what she earned. Going to put all that information over here. So the interest is 975. The principal is 5,000. The rate is 6.5%. And we're looking for the time. Here's my original formula. What do I need to do to change my formula?
What? Multiply.
So what am I trying to do to the formula? What variable am I trying to get to itself, by itself?
The T.
Okay, if I want to get the t by itself, what's happening right now to the t?
Oh, you got to divide, except divide.
Okay. So right now it's being multiplied. So in order to get rid of the multiplication, I need to divide.
Divide by PR, divide by PR, cross out, that's just going to be I over PR times T.
Equals t.
Equals.
Yeah.
Okay, and now you can just plug in your information. So you're going to plug in I and divide it by PR. So my I is 975. It's going to be divided by 5,000 times my R as a decimal. So it's going to be 0.065.
Divided by 5,000.
Yes.
0.065.
What was the answer, Jules?
3 years.
Okay, good. 3 years.
Yes.
So let me see, 500 times.
Okay. So it's going to be 975 divided by 325.
975 divided by
So
25.
T is equal to 3 years.
975. 5 times 3. Years. Okay. Ooh.
All right, so I'm going to go put that back into my chart now. All right, so 3 years for her to earn that money. All right. Okay, no worries, Michelle. All right, so now we've done it all, right? We've figured out how to manipulate all the formulas to get it to work for us for any of these situations, to do the principal, the rate, the time, or the interest earned, all right? So now we're gonna just kind of work through some similar word problems in order for us to make sure that we're understanding when one thing is being asked of over another, and also to work with balances, right? So if I ask you what the balance is after a certain amount of time, and all you've did for me is calculate the interest is not the balance. The balance is going to be the principal plus the interest. You're gonna have to add those two things together.
So like for instance, the Alice Apple would be the 600 plus the 126.
Right, that would be her balance.
Oh, you mean the total that she would have in all?
Exactly. Yep. All right, so let's keep going. We're gonna take a look at some of these word problems. Okay. So it says Jose deposits $1,500 of his tax refund into an account that earns simple annual interest. How much interest will his account earn after 6 years at an annual interest rate of 4%? What's our formula again?
Interest equals
Mm-hmm.
principal, rate, and time.
Good. Principal times rate times time. Okay.
So the deposit would be the principal, right?
Good.
So the P is equal to $1,500.
Okay. What's my rate?
R
This was
4%,
Okay. How do I turn that into a decimal?
0.4,
Nope.
0.04.
0.04, sorry,
Okay. And how many years?
6.
Good.
So the
Okay.
time would be 6 years.
360.
0.4. So it would be
360.
I equals PRT.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to, what we're finding again, Mr. G?
The interest, the I. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the interest, so that would divide it by,
Nope. This one is straight multiplication, right? Because it's just interest times rate times time.
360.
Good.
so, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't have to change this formula at all. We got to use the regular formula.
Because we're just looking for the interest.
Correct.
Oh, so once you're not looking for the interest, then you gotta
Then you have to divide. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Good. Right. So once you're looking for the interest, all you do is multiply your
Straight
three numbers
multiply, not
together.
looking for interest, then you divide.
Absolutely.
Looking for interest, straight multiply, not looking for interest. Do division. Okay.
Okay. So that's your interest. Your interest that he earned was $360.
You know, I had to call the bank about something like that to Mr. G.
Well, I don't know a single bank out there, especially right now, because the interest rates are all very low, who would ever give you 4%. Most banks right now are giving you 0.5%. That's the
My
max.
one was like 0.2%,
Yep.
Mr. G, and I was paying more to keep. So I called him, I said, this makes no sense. Why am I paying you more money to keep my money? It doesn't make any sense. And believe it or not, Mr. G, I got back a refund of, I think it was what, $150.
Mhm.
They refund me back $150.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just did not make sense. I say, I'm paying you guys to keep my money at a certain percentage of interest, and you're giving me back points. I said, come on, this.
Yeah.
I said, I'd rather come to the bank and take my money. I don't have a spending problem. I know to control my money. So I guess they didn't want me hear me saying that I'll come to the bank to keep my money. I want
Right.
to pay them to keep it. So they
No, I
refund
mean,
me
especially
$150.
this year, all the interest rates have dropped. So a lot of people who were even making better interest rates, they're not anymore, because of the financial situation around the world. So yeah, interest rates have all plummeted.
But
So,
as far as I'm concerned, you don't make any interest here in America, and your money in Jamaica, it would be different.
we absolutely do not. That's right. You're right.
In Jamaica, I have the amount of money that I had in my account at that time, Mr. G. I would be making crazy interest in Jamaica.
Yep. Nope. Not here. No, the bank's here. Nope. Not at all.
Sense.
Okay. So this one for number 2 says Lisa borrows $2,850 at 4.3% simple interest per year. When Lisa pays back the loan 9 years later, what is the total amount that she ends up repaying? All right, so again, we're going to use our normal formula here. We don't have to change anything, but we do have to identify all of our parts. So what's our principal?
2,850.
Good. What's our interest rate as a decimal?
0.043.
Good, 0.043. And for how much time is she borrowing this money?
9 years.
Good, 9 years. So we can just put this straight into a calculator. 2850 times 0.043 times 9.
1,102.95.
Okay, very good. All right, so our interest is $1,102.95. But that doesn't answer the question. The question is, what is her total? So now what do I do?
I made the addition.
Okay, so to find the total, also known as the balance, you have to add the principal and the interest. So we have to take our 1102.95 and add
with 2,800.
2850 to it. And we're gonna get what?
3,952.95.
So our total is $3,952.95. Okay, that is our total. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to move on to number 3. All right, so Malik deposited $1,050 in a savings account, and it earned $241.50 in simple interest after 4 years. Find the interest rate on Malik's savings account. So the normal equation says I is equal to PRT, but we're not looking for the interest this time. What are we looking for?
The rate.
The interest rates. So we need it to say R. R is equal to what?
I divide by PT.
Very good. I divided by PT. Again, we can find that just by dividing away the things that we don't need, okay, and leaving R by itself. So this is our equation that we're working with. Our interest is here, right? This is our I. Our principal is here, right? And our time is 4 years. So we're gonna put all those numbers in. We're gonna have, oops, excuse me, 241.50 divided by 1,050 times 4. Which is 4,200, right? Yeah. So that becomes 241.50 divided by 4,200. I'm going to put that into my calculator. 241.50 divided by 4,200 is what I'm going to put into my calculator. And I'm going to get that my R is equal to 0.0575. I need to turn that into a percent, which is going to be what?
5.75%.
Perfect. Okay. Let's try number 4. It says when Melissa was born, her parents put $8,000 into a college fund account that earned 9% simple interest. Find the total amount after 18 years. So we get to just use our normal formula, right? But of course, we need the total at the end. So we have to remember to add the principal to the interest. Okay, we have to find our interest first. I'm gonna let you guys work on this one on your own. So find the interest and then tell me the total.
It does multiply by 0.09 multiplied by 18.
Mhm.
by 18, 0.9.
$20,960.
Good work. So my interest was $12,960, which I calculated after I did 8,000 times 0.09 times 18. Then you have to add the 8,000 to the 12,960, and your total is $20,960. Okay.
I do well with some money like that.
That was after 18 years, Miriam.
Well, Mr. G, my oldest child is 26, so if I had put in some money like that, my girlfriend said she put in, when her daughter just born, they introduced her, our bank introduced her to saving towards college.
Mhm.
And now our daughter is doing like the 3rd year now in college. When she went down back to Jamaica, she had been there for a while, and to check the account, the money could not even pay the 1st year college fee. She said, hell no, I'm taking out my money. The bank is trying to convince her to let the money stay there or whatever. She said, hell no. From she born until now, no, she's 21 years old. Come on, where do they expect her to go to college?
Yep. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. It takes so long to earn interest. So long.
But 21 years, Mr. G.
I know. It's crazy. It's absolutely
And the money
crazy.
can't even pay the 1st year college fee.
But that also speaks to how much the price of college has gone up, right? Like that's the other thing too, is that the price of college just keeps rising and rising and rising.
And then she's studying to be a doctor, so it's crazy.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. You know, these doctors, when they finish school, they make something like $150,000, maybe $200,000 a year, but they owe so much to their school, right, that they live like poor people.
Well, the greatest thing about it with her is that she's living in Florida, and all her schooling is scholarship. Even the books that she gets,
Great. Yeah.
It's just straight scholarship, because she be getting like 198 lease. So it's just straight scholarship. So our mother was like, I'm still gonna give her that money because I had pledged that money to her in Jamaica.
Right.
That's still her money, but the great thing about it, it's not costing them anything here.
That's great. That is fantastic. All right, so this is the last one that we're going to do today, number 5. It says Robert won $900,000 in the North Carolina State Lottery. After paying $350,000 in taxes, he invested the remaining money in a savings account with 4.25% interest rate. How much money is in the account if Robert makes no deposits or withdrawals for 2 years? All right, so I need you to find, again, we're looking for the total at the end. So you need to do principal plus interest at the end, but you have to use the interest formula to figure out how much money he's depositing, and that's going to be your principal. You have to figure that out first. You have to do some subtraction here. And then you can figure out how much interest he's going to make after 2 years. And then tell me what his total is going to be.
So you're saying that we got to take away the 900.
You got to take away the 350 from the 900,000 because he has to pay. That's the taxes he's going to pay. And then he says he's going to invest the remaining money. That's how I know I have to subtract because of the word remaining. And he's going to invest that for 2 years at 4.25%. So what's the interest and what's his total?
So why am I getting? Oh, sorry. $500 minus. $4.25. So is this still gonna be 0? All right, so 550 times 0.0. That times 2. 4.25. So it's 455,000 times 0.425 times 2 equals to that 4 equals to 467.50 plus plus 55000. Oh Lord. I don't trust this answer. So I got 1.017.500. So if this is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 1 million.
Ooh, something's wrong.
That's what I'm saying. I don't trust this answer, so I don't know where I got this.
What did you get for your interest rate? Your interest, I mean.
My interest was, oh Lord. I don't know what I did here, Mr. My pencil. I did something way wrong, Mr. G. I don't understand this one.
So for your principal, it should be 550,000, right? Your interest rate is 0.0425, and your years are 2 years. When you multiply that all together, what did you get?
I got 467.
Good. Yeah.
5.
So you should have 46,750.
750.
Right, that's right. Okay, so then I think you
Where
just.
did I go wrong after that? Because what I did know was I went and added to that. So I guess I probably put 10 too much, Mr. G.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
No.
96.
Oh, I see where I went wrong. I had 10 with the 4675 should be 50. I have 2 zeros.
Okay, yeah.
So that's
there you go. So it should be $596,750.
So that's where I went wrong. Oh Lord.
Okay, so that means we're going to finish up the last page on Monday for these notes. I'm going to show you guys what you need to do by 3 o'clock tomorrow. That means not by tonight. You guys have until 3 o'clock tomorrow to do this practice. So let me go back to that right class. So in your week 9 folder, practice number 1 or practice number 2 by 3 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, if you're watching this recording back, make sure you do the percents notes and practice number 1 or practice number 2 by 3 o'clock tomorrow.
We did the percent notes, right?
Yep, you guys already finished the percent notes and you
Okay,
even
so we do
started
1 or 2 or
the
both.
simple interest notes. We're not finished with the simple interest notes yet. We have one more page left of those. So make sure that you do practice 1 or 2 if you're on with me live. Make sure you do one of those 2 things by 3 o'clock tomorrow. Okay. All right. That is it. So I will see you all on Monday for more math, or I'll see you on Friday for science.
So Mr. G, question before you leave. Mr. Thomas was saying to go and something for